All right, Ken, let's see what you got going on. We're here at Hydrospace. What's up, Reef Builders? I'm here with Ken. We're gonna be going over the Hydrospace product line. We're gonna see what production looks like, what a day in the life of Ken, a bacteria farmer, is like. What's up, Reef Builders? Salem Clemens here. We're in Colorado at Hydrospace. We're here with Kenneth, the owner. Great to be here, Kenneth.
Likewise.
We're going to be covering a new strain, several strains of bacteria that Kenneth has isolated that could potentially be hitting the market pretty soon. You might know him from PNS ProBio, Yellow Snow, all of his products that are already on the market doing great things. Let's talk about something new.
For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we specialize in phototrophic bacteria. It all starts here in what we call the kitchen. It's usually wheeled out under the fume hood here and running for hours at a time. But all the action pretty much is out here in the grow room. Nothing special about the lights, just white shop lights, really. The bacteria are not picky about light because they're very adaptable in that way. The only thing they're picky about is temperature. So we maintain an ambient of about 83 Fahrenheit. We just keep them on rows here. We wheel them out. After we make the culture media in the kitchen, we inoculate them out here, put them up on the shelf, and they take about 30 days to ripen up. And it's pretty obvious when they're finished because the carotenoids reach a certain density, and we know they're healthy and ready for bottling, at which point we actually wheel them back into the kitchen and have a way of bottling them.
All right, so tell us, where did you isolate all these strains? What's going on here? You've got a lot of different colors. Can you explain kind of the potential for use in the aquarium and what these strains could be doing?
Well, we're still investigating a lot of that, but these are mainly phototrophs that we brought back from French Polynesia a year and a half ago. Fortunately, I've been able to maintain these in polyculture, meaning a number of species that live together in a community, and they actually seem to be a functional community, what's sometimes referred to as a guild, where instead of competing with each other, they actually promote each other's growth. But I have at least partially isolated some of these. So we have one, Rhodovolum, which is a purple non-sulfur bacteria, and Merichromatium, which is a purple sulfur bacteria, and Prostacochlorus, which is a green sulfur bacteria. But we're still able to grow off of the original culture, amazingly, which is a year and a half old now. And this is an example of that when they're all kind of mixed together.
So how do you see this differentiating from PNS ProBio, for instance? Do you see PNS ProBio acting as a food and this acting as a kind of microbiome supplement of structuring that community, or how do you see them being different products?
So these are mainly going to, with the exception of Rhodovolum, which is also a purple non-sulfur bacteria, the sulfur bacteria are obligate anaerobes, so they definitely live deep in the substrate, meaning they're not going to spend a lot of time out in the water column as like a food, for example. So their role is more degrading hydrogen sulfide. So if you have a deep sand bed or a lot of porous biomedia and there's any concern that hydrogen sulfide can build up, these guys are a line of defense against that. But as far as purple non-sulfur bacteria go, it's not necessarily redundant to add Rhodovolum because this particular species is known to have a lot of fatty acids, which purple non-sulfur bacteria, including the ones we currently have, are usually a little bit lacking in.
So you said you isolated them from French Polynesia. What did the sampling process look like? What was the journey of bringing that back here and getting to this stage?
Well, started with a lot of concerns with, I think it was the USDA and how they define a soil, whether or not it's from the intertidal zone and customs and things like that. Obviously, we got that through and started a culture somewhat blindly using the same culture medium that we use to grow substrate sauce. And luckily we had a bunch of bacteria to grow, and continued to culture those out for a year and a half till finally, more recently, I actually had them tested more extensively through aquabiomics and discovered that the 3 dominant species, these guys here, all have different benefits in aquaculture and aquarium keeping.
So you mentioned these 2 strains. Tell us about the green bacteria.
Yeah, so that's Prosthecochlorus, I believe. Well, according to aquabiomics, and that is a green sulfur bacterium. So that also removes hydrogen sulfide, basically makes little granules out of elemental sulfur inside of its body. But yeah, so this one actually exists, we're thinking, the genus exists as a coral symbiont, and it's a endolith, meaning it actually lives in the skeleton. So we're waiting to see if this particular species is among that group. We don't know yet.
So when you were in French Polynesia, where did you actually collect the samples? How closely were they to coral? Was it on a reef? Was it just kind of like a tidal zone? Where did you do the sample collection at?
Yeah, so I am licensed to dive, but in this case we just did snorkeling because we wanted to collect from a shallow area, which I thought would better replicate aquarium conditions. So we found what were the most common coral in that area, Porites, and 3 different sites. Visited a Porites bommy and harvested mucus and also sediments just at the edge of the bommy. Now these are from the wild, so there was a ridiculous biodiversity in those samples. They're very, very long.
Yeah.
And by the way, I get a different report from Eli than most people get. This gives a list of
species level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really nice, but it was a very long list. So yeah, I certainly don't remember because there were 3 different sites and that was a year and a half ago. But so these sites were actually near polluted waters. We spoke to a biologist for coral gardeners. They raise corals there to reintroduce into the wild. And she was blaming the pineapple industry and the cruise industry for all the excess nutrients going into the water. And that actually, and we tested the water, of course, too. Did a bunch of different, we even did some ICP on some of those samples. But it was a somewhat for a coral reef, very nutrient-rich environment. So as it happens, they were actually closer to what a normal aquarium would look like.
Where do you see the future of the aquarium probiotics industry heading? Any strains of interest? Do you think that there could just be more application and research and development with, taking sediments from the wild? Where do you think that will go next 10, 20 years?
Yeah, so obviously like a focus on some of the major players in the microbiome would be a good idea. But also rethinking the microbiome in the aquarium. We tend to think of bacteria as being something to fix water quality, as we were discussing earlier. Sometimes you have to have your water quality right to promote the growth of certain desirable bacteria. So once that happens, even if some of these that aren't culturable, which is it's a substantial chunk of the bacteria out there, it's more a matter of like getting, fine-tuning our husbandry to get the right types of bacteria to grow. On the other hand, just for foods or for other purposes, I think there's going to be a strong and stronger sector in an industry for producing bacteria for various purposes.
All right, so we've talked about these new strains. What about the existing Hydrospace line? Any expected changes to the current products you have on the market?
Yeah, so ProBio, which is our major product, is actually going to become all 3 species. So substrate sauce is going to go. That was 2 species. It's basically going to be that one plus Rhodobacter. So just to kind of show you guys, they look similar, but this is Rhodopseudomonas, Rhodobacter. So Rhodopseudomonas is more for denitrification. Rhodobacter is a biofilm producer, so this would be more for like maybe competing with cyano, stuff like that. And then this is Rosiobacter, which is a really good one for food because it likes to swim more. It becomes more available for coral grazing. And then of course, at some point down the line, we may actually include some of these other species as well, but that's going to take a lot more research and trials. So but instead of trying to do a million different things with a million different bottles, a lot of people want more of an all-in-one kind of thing. And when you're talking about billions and billions of cells per bottle, there's room for a few different species, especially if they're complementary in some way. So this makes sense, and I think it's going to make things a lot easier for people in terms of just convenience and price, and sometimes some of the practical things we think about, but it'll certainly work a lot better.
All right, and where could they get your product? Retail, wholesale? What are we looking at?
As I mentioned, we have an exclusive U.S. distributor. That's Aquarium Supply Distribution, ASD. They supply basically all aquarium shops, big and small. So maybe your favorite LFS. If you want to purchase it online, it's available at saltwateraquarium.com.
Well, cool. Thanks, Ken. Great to see your facility.
Thank you
A
again.
day in the life of a bacterial farmer.
It was a pleasure.